Okay, so we're going to try this again a different way. This was supposed to be a Facebook Live class, and my computer, my internet, my streaming service, whatever it was, we haven't quite figured it out yet. Decided no, it didn't want to work for me today, which probably is par for the week, you know? So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint this project and record this video and get it up on my YouTube channel as quickly as I possibly can. So it will almost be like you were in the class. Again, I apologize and hoping that by next month we'll have this all figured out. If not, we're going to have to think of something else. Anyway, so let's get started on this. This is called Blue Kitty. And for the purpose of this video, I'm only going to be painting one as opposed to two. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to get out some dioxazine purple. And we're going to float shading on the background around the edges, which you can notice I kind of already did because that's what we started to do before I decided to pull the plug on the Facebook Live. So you're just going to go all the way around the outside edge with a float of Diox purple. See if you can get it all over your fingers like I did too. So there we go, all the way around the outside edge. And then you want to dry that a little bit. If I was doing two, I'd have time for that to dry. Because we also want to float dioxazine purple all the way around the pumpkin and the stem and the leaf. So let's get this going. And this is just going to pop that pumpkin off the background a little bit. But I also think it makes the background look just a little bit richer too. If you understand what I mean by richer, it just gives it a little bit more depth and interest. So all the way around this pumpkin. A lot of times I'll do this before I do the base painting, which is kind of nice because then you don't have to worry about getting it on the stuff you already base coated in. I bet those of you that waited till the last minute to get your prep done were really excited when I had to pull the plug on that live video. So just a quick float of Diox purple around the pumpkin, the leaf, and the stem. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the pumpkin itself. And what we're going to do is we are going to float and dry brush some highlighting on our pumpkin with moon yellow. So moon yellow, we're going to float highlighting on the outside edges of each of these sections of the pumpkin. Okay, blend it out really well. It's going to go on pretty bright, but it tones down after a while. So just a quick, probably blend it out a little bit more. It does look awful, doesn't it? But it does tone down, I swear. and just kind of coax it along the whole length. And if you like to mop your floats out, this is a good place to do that. Soften it even more. And then I'm going to come in and float this outside edge of that next of the center section. Itchy nose. And it doesn't want to move really well today. And I can go right through the eyes and the mouth because they're moon yellow. But I can't go through the cat. Okay. Go. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to flip my guy around. May have to research YouTube live and see. Or I may have to get a new computer. Who knows? But we will research and work it out before next month. And let's see, one more highlight. Oh. Right here. Knock that out. And up here. Really horrible. You see, it did tone down quite a bit if you look at what it was when we first put it on, and as it dries, it tones down. And so now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to float some shading on our pumpkin. And that's going to be with country red first. I always like to put some red into my pumpkins. And I'm going to go back to my bigger brush. It's the bigger brush, 3/4 inch. And what I'm going to do is there are several places that we float shading. So just kind of pay attention. We're going to go on the outside sections of the pumpkin next to that center section. So it's a back-to-back float up against that highlight. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to stop when I get to that mouth. And then I'll come back down underneath here. I just think that gives it a nice, just a nice little color for the pumpkin. So on the other side of that center section, and then up towards the top. All right. I'm going to dry that a little bit because we have a few more places where we need to float that shading. And before we even do that, we need to get in here and dry brush some highlighting. So we'll come back and float some more country red, but we need to dry brush some moon yellow highlighting on our pumpkin sections. I knew I forgot something. So I'm going to go down the center with moon yellow in between the eyes. It's going to help a lot. So whatever brush you like to dry brush with, get that puppy out. You also want to dry brush on the teeth a little bit, which is kind of nice because moon yellow is around it, so it doesn't matter if you get off. I got myself so flustered that I forgot a step. Then we're going to go down here. We want to get a little highlighting dry brush in here. We're going to go down the sides also. You're going down kind of the center of the side sections. All the way down. Oh, there we go. That's looking much better. And I'm going to go in here as best you can under that leaf. And a little bright there, but I think it'll be okay. All right. So we're also going to dry brush some brighter highlighting with warm white. And we might as well do that while we have our dry brush out and not wet. So just put a little warm white out on your palette and pick up them on your dirty brush. So it's going to be a lighter value yellow. This I'm going to keep more towards the top and very bottom. Okay. So in the top here, a little bit down between the eyes, on the chin, down here, and down here. So I just lighten that up a little bit. Now you can wash your dry brush out, and we'll get back to that country red shading that we started earlier. Again, with my 3/4 inch brush. Now we've done on the side sections next to the center section. So now what we want to do is we want to go in the bottom of each section. So I'm going to start up on the side here a little bit, kind of on the chisel, and I'm going to float this country red and kind of walk it up in the bottom of that section a little bit. I'm going to do that to each section. So country red, and yes, you go right on top of some of the highlights that you did, but it's okay. They still kind of show through. And now I'm going to go on this side. Right? So there we've got that bottom shaded in. Now we're going to go and do the same thing to the top. So very well blended out, country red. And I'm going to go in the top of the center section. And then I'm going to go in the side section here on the left. And I want to walk that color down a little bit. And then in this other section, it has the leaf on top of it. We're going to come just a hair below where the leaf is, start our float, and then we'll come around our leaf. And then walk that color a little bit too. So there, we've got a nice country red floats on there. And now we're going to come back, and all those places that you just floated with country red, you're going to float with burnt umber, very well blended out. So let's get out a little burnt umber. Same brush and same areas that you floated. With the red, you're going to come back and float with the burnt umber. Because pumpkins have to have a little bit of brown on them. They're dirty. So I'm going to start with those side sections right next to the center section. And right above my mouth all the way to the top. Makes a nice float with that red underneath. I'm going to dry that a little bit. And then I am going to do my floats in the bottom of each section. Just kind of gives it a little bit more dimension and shape too. And then one more. And then we'll go back and do the top section. Around this leaf. I do this to all my pumpkins. It's very rare that I don't add these multiple layers of shading. I try to do it easier, but it just doesn't happen for me. All right, there we go. Now, if you feel like you want to pop up the highlights a little bit more, you can come in with straight warm white. In fact, we'll probably come back and do that when these shadings are dry a little bit more. So let's move on to the face. We are going to dry brush some highlighting in the eyes and the mouth with warm white. And so this is just straight warm white. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight through the centers of each of those facial features. Brighten it up. Get up here in the side of this mouth if you can with your brush. Wherever you can get your brush in there, stick some warm white dry brushing. Okay, and gosh, since we have warm white on our brush, before we wash it out, we will go ahead and just add just a couple of spots. See how much that brightens up there? Just a couple of spots of some warm white highlighting, just to give that pumpkin, even a little bit more dimension. Doesn't take very much to brighten those areas up. And then you can go ahead and wash your dry brush out. And then we are going to float some shading with burnt orange inside our eyes and mouth. And I'm going to go all the way around the mouth. In fact, I go all the way around each the eyes and the mouth. You're going to go around the cat too. So with very well blended out burnt orange. Into our facial features. And what's nice is your background is burnt orange, so if you get outside of it, it's okay. So what I'll probably do is just pick and choose edges to shade and then come back and finish. Gives it a nice little glow. But basically every edge is going to get a float of burnt orange. Go around your teeth. And let's get another part of the eye done. And I need to shade around this cat. I'm not being real careful. I don't know if you can notice, but because so much stuff comes back on top of all this, the cat and stuff, that if it's a little choppy or if it gets on the cat, it's okay. It'll be just fine. Get the other side of the cat. And one more space along the bottom of the eyes. All right, I think I missed right here. Okay, cool. So we've got that burnt orange shading in our facial features. And we're gonna take some of that burnt umber that's on our palette and our flat brush. And what we're gonna do is we are going to float on these cut edges in the eyes, on the teeth, and in the mouth. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little closer to his face there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna side load just like I was gonna do a regular float. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along here, color up. So I'm making like a cut edge here. Okay. So my color's to the inside of the eye. And that gives me that cut edge. I'm going to add one down here. And I'm going to come up this side. So it kind of trails off and goes to the point when you get into the top of the eye. And let's work on the mouth. So we want to give the teeth some cut edges. So I'm going to start kind of with my brush kind of straight perpendicular to the straight edge of the tooth, and then just pull up. Okay? Really easy peasy way to do that, the cut edges on things. Probably could have had more paint on there, but I think it'll work. And then we want to give the mouth a cut edge, just a little bit. Let me see, I'm going to start here and just kind of follow the curve of the mouth around. And it comes up on the left side just a little ways and then trails off. Okay, so we did the inside of the eyes and next to the teeth, and then in the right side of the mouth with a little bit trailing up on the left side. Okay, so we set in those cut edges. And I apologize for saying okay so much. And then we're going to come back on the edges that didn't get a cut edge. We want to float shading with burnt umber. So that just means this one side of the eye, I'm going to do a nice soft float of burnt umber on top of that burnt orange. And over on this side, I'll do one. And then in the mouth, we have a couple of places. I'm going to come down here. Just that one little portion that doesn't have the cut edge on it. We want to go on the sides of the teeth that don't have cut edges. And then across the top between the teeth. It's a whole lot of little bits of shading. And I have to go down this other back side of the tooth. We also want to float this burnt umber around the cat, just to pop him out of that mouth a little bit more. So just soft floats of burnt umber, not anything really heavy. And it doesn't have to take forever. You have your little turntable. Get your things on. That makes it really easy. All right. Now we have a couple of eyes, and we need to paint those in with lamp black. Just a little bit of lamp black. And let's give him his eyes. So you want to paint in that pupil with lamp black. Hopefully you can still see your pattern. If not, you can stop and put your pattern on, or you can just wing it. And they're just great big ovals. I can't see this one too good. So I'll just kind of wing it. I think that's going to do it. Now we want that to dry, because I want to take my flat brush and add a float of warm white around this pupil on the back of the eye itself. We lost that dry brush warm white highlight quite a bit. So what I want to do is I want to reinforce that a little bit. So I'm going to corner load into warm white. And I'm just going to float warm white all the way around this eye. Just to make it stand out a little bit more. However you can get in there to do that. All right. You're going to need a little bit of desert turquoise. Get a little closer to the eyes. And what we're going to do is we are going to add a float of desert turquoise into the bottom of each eye. I think you can see that right there. So just a corner load float, desert turquoise. And in the bottom of each of those black pupils, you just want to add a C-stroke float of desert turquoise. If it's not dark enough to suit you, you can let it dry and come back and float it again. Okay. And then what we have is just take a liner brush and some warm white, and you want to just set down highlight in each of those pupils. Okay? So we're going to come in now and do some moon yellow highlight floats on the pumpkin itself around our facial features. So with moon yellow and side load float, kind of blend it out a little. What we want to do is we want to add a highlight above each eye. And this is going to start just a little bit past the point of the eye. So start out, eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch past the point of the eye and go past the other edge too. It kind of gives him like a brow, I guess, is what I'm looking for. So the same thing on the other side. And again, they go on bright, and then they tone down as they dry. We also want to float above the mouth. And you can go ahead and go all the way across. You don't have to stop at the teeth, okay? You can just go all the way across. And that too is going to start just a hair off the actual corner. So you get a little kind of overhang too. It's warm here today, and I have my overhead fan on. So I think that's kind of messing with my paint a little bit. Okay. I see a little line there that I want to get rid of. All right, cool. And now we want to come back with a little bit of warm white. You want to blend it out really well and float warm white highlighting in those places again, just to brighten them up even more. You see, I don't have, it's very well blended out. But it's enough to brighten it up just a little bit. And again, over the mouth. All right. Very cool. You're going to need some dragon fruit. And what we're going to do is we are going to give our pumpkin nice big cheek, because, you know, every pumpkin has cheeks. And while we're at it, we could probably go ahead and give our cat some cheeks. So get out your brush you like to dry brush with. And get yourself some dragon fruit. I'm going to back up a little bit. And I'm going to put my cheeks kind of right here on the corners of his mouth. So that means I'm not going to do a complete circle this time. A lot of times I'm able to go and just do a great big circle and it doesn't matter. But this one, we don't really want the cheek inside the mouth. So it's kind of like 3/4 of a circle there. So just nice, big dragon fruit cheeks. It actually does add quite a bit to them. And then while we're at it, we can go ahead and dry brush some cheeks on our cat. And those are going to kind of go right parallel with the nose. So he has some nice little cheeks too. So I'm going to come back with some burnt umber. And what I want to do is I want to shade the cut edges a little bit. So I'm going to shade them like right here and in the corner. And I'm going to come across the top of the teeth here. So I want to touch a little shading on the cut edge at the top or wherever it goes behind the cat. So we just have several little places that we're going to touch a little bit of burnt umber shading. So a side lobe photo of burnt umber. First place I want to go is in the corner of this eye. And that just kind of gives it more of a cut look. Get it deep enough. There we go. And then I also want to come right here. All right? So I gave that a corner, and I did up against here. So here, I'm going to do a corner also. And I'm going to go right there. I want to go the top here in the mouth. And I'm also going to come next to the tail, next to the paw. There's tail, tail. Quite a few little places around the tail. And then I need to come over here, go next to the paw. And now on the teeth, what I can do is I can float all the way across the top of the tooth, including that cut edge. Right? And let's see. We do need to float this burnt umber shading on the inside edge of the eye on the pumpkin. Okay? Lots of little shading places. Actually, it's going to come here. Let's stop when it gets to that little overhang. And then it's going to go across the bottom and stop when it gets to the little overhang. So two edges of the eye. That makes them look really good. And we're going to go around the bottom of the mouth. And that includes going around his little paws. So I'm actually going to start up here and come down, and then I'm going to go around the cat's tail. And down here. I'm going to tuck a little bit in that little bit of orange that shows beyond his tail. I'm going to go around his paws. And then bottom of the mouth again. Around the paws. And up the other side of the mouth. Very good. So we are going to work on our leaf and our stem. They were painted in Irish moss. And so we're going to come in first and dry brush some highlighting on the leaf with moon yellow. So I'm just going to go in each of these little bumps kind of and dry brush some highlighting on that leaf just to give it some shape. And we can go ahead and dry brush a little bit of highlighting on our stem through the middle. I want to float some highlighting also on my leaf. And so I'm going to float moon yellow highlighting across the top of the leaf. Turn my guy around and I'm going to come across the top here on each little bump. And then I'm also going to come across the center vein line. And on the stem, I'm going to come on one side, I'm going to float a highlight, and I'll go across the top a little bit. The stem, we do some different things too, so it's not all that important. All right, we are going to come with some evergreen and float some shading on our leaf and stem. So with evergreen, I'm going to go across the bottom of the stem. I'm going to go across the bottom of the leaf. And I'm also going to come and float that center vein line of back-to-back float next to that highlight float that we did. On these leaves too, I also want to float this evergreen kind of at the base of the leaf. So I'm going in the bottom of the top rounded section, just to curve that leaf just a little bit more. I want to dry this a little bit so we can come in and do the next shading, which is with burnt umber. We're just going to deepen the shading we just did with some floats of burnt umber. If the pumpkin is in the garden and it got dirty, certainly its leaves got kind of dirty too. So let's go across the bottom of the stem and the bottom of the leaves. And that center vein line. And just a little touch at the back end of the leaves. Now what you're going to do is we are going to add this streakiness on the stem. I couldn't think of the name right just yet. So what I first want to do is I want to float in that cut edge of that stem, and I'm going to do that with evergreen. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to put in those ridges and lines. So first with evergreen, I want to come up here and I want to add the cut edge. Easy peasy. Now, you're going to use your flat brush and you're going to side load it like you were going to float. But we're going to stay up on our chisel edge. And let's see if I can get a way for you to see this. I think that'll work. So I'm going to start and I'm going to color up. I'm just going to pull pull some ridges with moon yellow. So I'm just staying on my chisel edge and pulling ridges through my pumpkin stem. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with evergreen and do the same thing, but I'm going to pull from the base of the stem up. So I'm going to turn this around, and now I'm colored down next to the pumpkin. I'm going to start pulling ridges into that pumpkin stem with evergreen. That gives us a nice, interesting pumpkin stem. The next thing I want to do is I want to, again, using the chisel edge, I'm just going to come here to my leaf, and with it, my brush on the chisel edge, color next to the center vein line, I'm just going to set down some little creases and stuff in my leaf, so it looks like it has other vein lines, maybe, or more texture. There we go. Easy peasy stem and leaf. So what we're going to do is we are going to line the stem that goes to the leaf with a larger liner brush. I think this is probably 4. And it's just going to come up. You can make it curve however you like, as long as it ends in that center vein line of the leaf. And I'm just going to line some highlighting with that same liner brush. And moon yellow, I'm just going to take and line some highlighting on this leaf, the stem to the leaf, with moon yellow. And what I want to do is I want to come back with a float of burnt umber, and I want to deepen up the base of the stem. Just a little bit. Burnt umber, and I'm just going to deepen that stem base just a touch. Kind of sits it down into the pumpkin a little bit. And then one more little thing to do is I want to come with a very well blended out float of that desert turquoise, the color we put in our pumpkin eyes. And I'm just going to add just a touch of this blue float in the bottom of the leaf. Just a teeny tiny touch. There we go. Done. We are going to go to work on our little kitty now. So our cat was based in graphite. We are going to come with some desert turquoise, and we're going to dry brush some highlighting on our cat. So I'm drying out my dry brush right now. I'm going to pick up some desert turquoise. And I'm going to dry brush highlighting on his ears with this desert turquoise. Doesn't matter if you get inside a little bit, it'll be okay. I'm going to go across his forehead. You can go right through where his eyes are going to be. go on his little cheeks and his chest. And some blue down here on his cheeks, on his chest. I'm going to go on his paws. He's looking better already. And then I want to get some on his tail. So then you're just going to pick up a little bit of warm white on that dirty brush. So you're going to end up with a lighter value of desert turquoise. And we're going to come in and we're going to dry brush just a little bit brighter highlighting. I'm going to keep it in the top of the tail, top of the paws, top of the head, and just a little bit in the top of the ears. Right? We are going to come back with our flat brush and we're going to float shading on our cat with lamp black. So what I want to do is corner load, blend out some lamp black. One of the first places I'm going to go is on his ears, next to his head. On the ears, next to the head. I want to go around his nose. All the way around his nose. I want to go in the bottom of his little paws. There we go. Make his little paws stand out more. I want to go on his tail, next to his head, and above his paw. Kind of a little V area there. We want to go under, I want to kind of come under his nose and down around his jowls. And I'm going to go right through his lip because it's just easier than trying to go around his lip. I'm going to go under his cheeks or his jowls. And I also want to go on his chest next to his paws. Lots of little tiny places. And you have a little bit of his shoulder showing here. So you want to get a little bit, even if it's just sticking the corner of the brush in there. We need to go under his mouth. And then let's go across the bottom of his tail. So all the way along the bottom of the tail. Nice. Okay. So we're going to also take our flat brush, and we want to do a float of dragon fruit inside each ear. So it's going to go right up against that center there, where that it would be the outside of his ear and the inside of his ear. So I'm going to do the inside of his ear with a float of dragon fruit. And then I also want to give him a little lip, because, you know, they all have these little pink lips. Right? So he has a little lip now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to dry brush a little highlighting inside the ears and inside the top of the nose. And we're going to do that with dragon fruit plus a little bit of warm white. So I just want to add just a little bit of highlighting inside the ears and in the top part of the nose. Dragon fruit plus warm white. Okay, we're going to float shading in the bottom of the nose with country red. You should still be able to get that open on your palette. So just a quick float, little float of country red in the bottom of that nose. And then you're going to do a float of warm white across the top of the nose. Blend it out really well. You don't want it to be real white. So just a quick little float of warm white to finish off that nose. All right. There's also just a stroke of warm white in the top of the nose. So with your liner brush, it doesn't have to be a big liner. This one is an odd liner. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little brighter highlighted stroke across the top of his nose. We're going to line some whiskers. He's got, so you want a little bit of thin warm white. And let's give him a couple of hairs in his ears. First. And then he has a few little hairs on the top of his head. Go ahead and line those. Nothing perfect, nothing fancy. Let's see, he has a few little hairs above his eyes. So just give him like little eyebrows. We're going to come back and line some darker ones. Go ahead and give him a few little whiskers here on his little jewels. Not too many. You can give him some on his chin if you'd like. I wouldn't get too carried away there. And let's see, let's give him his whiskers now. Oh, you know what? Before we line those whiskers, let's come in with a float of desert turquoise. You can pry that open. We want to go with desert turquoise across the top of his paws. Okay, like a highlight. So across the top of the paws. We want to go across the top of his head. Yes, we're going to go right over those eyebrows we just did, but don't forget I said we were going to line some darker ones anyway. And let's go on the inside edge of his tail with a float of desert turquoise. So we did the top of the paws, inside edge of the tail, across the top of the head. All right, now we can go back in and we can line his little whiskers. So thin, warm white. And you can make your whiskers straight, you can make them curly. They're your whiskers. Well, they're his whiskers, but they're yours to put on. So just give him a few little whiskers. I'm not doing a very good job here, but you get the idea. It might be a little easier if I go at it this way. Okay, so he has some squirrely whiskers. I also put little whisker dots and just kind of tap those in with my liner brush around the whiskers. And then let's see, if you want, you can line his little claws with warm white. They come out of his, what do you want to do first? Let's do this first. Let's do lamp black, corner lobe float. And what you want to do is in each of those little sections of his claws, you want to do a little C-stroke float of lamp black for his little claws to come out of. So just a quick little C-stroke float of lamp black in his claws. I'm going to dry those really quick. Getting really close to done here, girls. Guys. So then I'm going to give myself some thin, warm white in my liner brush. And just going to line some little claws. I don't own a cat, so I have no idea what their claws really look like. But I thought that looked good. All right, very cool. Let's see, anything else with warm white? Not right at the moment. The eyes, his little eyes are painted with lamp black, much like the pumpkin's eyes. Just a couple of little ovals. And a couple little eyes. And then while those dry, what I want to do is I want to take my liner brush and lamp black and thin it down, make a light gray, not too dark. So not a lot of lamp. And we just want to add some gray hair coming out of the top of his head. And you can add some gray to his cheeks. If you'd like, and wherever else you'd like to add some gray hair, maybe a little on his chest. All right. So let's get them eyes dry. Get out just a touch of Irish moss. And with your liner brush, you want to add a little stroke of Irish moss in the bottom of each eye. Just a little. And see, that's not going to be nice enough for me. So what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll fix it with the black, which makes it nice. So now I want to make that shape a little nicer. So I'm going to come in with my liner brush and fix it. See that much better? All right. And then you just want to add a couple of warm white highlights in the top of the cat's eyes. Just a couple of little dots. There we go. Now, you can look at your guy and see if you want, you can come back and you can float some more burnt umber shading around the cat inside the mouth. But I think I'm actually going to leave it the way it is. And now we have a border that goes around this tag. And you can do that with a liner brush in warm white. Or if you bought or have a white paint pen, that would make it go so much faster. So I'm going to just add this border. I'm trying to find a good place to start. We'll be right here, I think. So I'm just going to take my paint pen and go around this outside edge and add the border, which really perks up the piece. It makes it a whole lot faster than your liner brush. I think this helps pop the design off the surface and the background a little bit more. If you're anal, you could even get out a ruler. So you get it just right distance from the edge, even all the way around. All right. So then you're going to want to put your pattern on for your lettering, or if you want to put the pattern on for your lettering, you can do that now. I'm going to dry this paint pen a little bit so I don't smudge it. And I'm going to get my pen and I'm going to put the pattern on for the lettering. Okay. Now you can write whatever you want on here. It doesn't have to say Boo Kitty. You can say whatever you want. It can say nothing. Okay. Now I did the lettering. I added a little bit of flourish to it. Let's see if I can get it so you can see. I didn't want just plain old lettering. So what I did is I took my paint pen, and as you can see, I thickened up one side of each letter. So I did my first line of Boo, of the B, and then I came back and just kind of added some thickness to that side. And then the O. Let's see which side did, okay. So I did the O first, the way it is, and then I just came in and added some thickness to that side. Same thing with this second O. Kitty. I'm going to thicken up that. The I, make it a little thicker, and it has stirrups for some reason. T. Okay, and then our Y. And let's see. If you wanted to come back and put stirrups on all of these, you could. If you wanted to pull different lettering out of your computer, you could do that. Just add some stirrups here. So I did Boo Kitty. Now I decided it needed a little something else, and you may decide it doesn't need this. But I just thought adding some little dots, accent dots, makes them go quick and easy when you have the paint pen. But I just went around my lettering and around my pumpkin here and there. I did down here in the corners a little bit. Just some more stuff. Because I can't leave anything alone, you know. Let's go wherever there's a little V area. You can add some little dots. Just to add some more interest to this piece. Okay. So I think that's gonna do it for us today. So we have our little Boo Kitty pumpkin all done. I appreciate you joining me. Again, I apologize for the bad transmission on the Facebook Live, but we're already working on fixes. So hopefully next month, when we do our Santa, we will have it all wired. Anyway, I shouldn't say that because that's kind of like inviting trouble, isn't it? Anyway, hopefully I'll see you again next month, if not sooner. Thanks so much for joining me, and have a great week.